before history, before language, before the first city stone was ever laid, there was art. Deep in the darkness of the earth, a human being took a handful of red ochre, placed their trembling hand on stone, and blew. A mark appeared. It didn't grow crops. It didn't catch prey. It didn't protect the tribe. So why did they do it? Why 45,000 years ago did humans begin painting animals, shapes, and symbols on the walls of caves? Was it ritual? A message to the spirits? A vision seen through fire and trance? A desperate need to say, I was here? Or was it the first glimpse of something new? The birth of imagination itself? This is not just where art began. This is where we began. In the year 1879, in the hills of northern Spain, a young girl named Maria was exploring a cave with her father, Marcelino Sanz de Sotuola, a passionate amateur archaeologist. They were searching for ancient bones and stone tools, as many were during that golden age of European discovery. Maria wandered further into the cave with a lantern. She looked up, and then she saw them. On the ceiling, glowing in flickering light, were painted bison, red and black, their forms graceful, their bodies powerful. Not scratched crudely, but painted with elegance and motion. Maria screamed for her father. Marcelino joined her and stared upward in awe. They had discovered the cave of Altamira, but when Marcelino presented the discovery to the academic world, the reaction wasn't celebration. It was outrage. Critics accused him of fraud. Scholars declared that primitive man could never create such masterpieces. Marcelino died in disgrace. It would take decades before his claims were vindicated. Altamira was just the beginning. In the early 20th century, more caves began to emerge across Europe. As roads, railways, and archaeological digs expanded, explorers discovered incredible prehistoric galleries. Among the most famous, Chauvet Cave, France. Discovered in 1994, featuring lions, rhinos, and mammoths, painted with astonishing realism. Dated to around 32,000 to 36,000 years ago. Lascaux Cave, France. Uncovered in 1940 by a group of teenagers and their dog, it holds over 600 paintings and 1,500 engravings, including horses, stags, and enigmatic symbols. El Castillo, Spain, home to the oldest known cave paintings in Europe, including a red disc dated to at least 40,800 years ago, and hand stencils older than 37,000 years. These caves were not chaotic collections of drawings. They were organized, purposeful, and deeply symbolic. Each site told a different story. One of the most complex challenges in studying cave art is determining how old it really is. Early archaeologists could only guess based on the style or nearby artifacts, but with modern science, we now have powerful methods to date these artworks. When ancient cave paintings were first accepted as authentic in the early 20th century, they shook the foundations of anthropology. If Ice Age humans could paint like this, what else were they capable of? Such as religious or hunting magic theory, shamanic visions, storytelling, even early language. The caves became a battlefield for theories of human consciousness, spirituality, and intelligence. Artists like Pablo Picasso, after visiting Lascaux, famously said, "We have invented nothing." Indeed, these Ice Age artists understood anatomy, perspective, and movement in ways that rival Renaissance painters. Many new theories comes like, why caves? Why not paint outside? Were these sanctuaries? Temples? Storytelling theaters? Or maybe return to the womb of the earth to connect with something greater. Whatever the reason, these artists painted in places few would ever see. Their audience may have been spirits, or the earth itself. Despite all we've learned, we're still just scratching the surface. There are over 400 known cave art sites in Europe alone, and likely hundreds more across Asia, Africa, and Australia, waiting to be discovered or already lost. Many caves remain inaccessible. Others are deteriorating due to climate, human breath, or tourist foot traffic. Lascaux was closed to the public in 1963. Even scientists enter only rarely now. A perfect replica, Lascaux 2, was built for visitors. The same happened for Chauvet, whose humid microclimate is too fragile for even a few breaths of carbon dioxide. Preserving these ancient messages requires technology, caution, and respect. A handprint in red, a bison in motion, a line carved in silence. But behind every mark is a person, and behind every painting, an artist. They lived in a world of hunger and danger. They walked across ice and shadow. They hunted mammoths and painted their stories. This is the story of the people who painted them. For decades, the image of the cave artist was the same: a solitary man, a hunter, muscular, bearded, in a torch-lit cavern painting deer for the next big hunt. But that idea, like the cave walls themselves, has started to crack. Recent studies, new evidence, and a deeper understanding of prehistoric life paint a very different picture. The cave artists were not just men, not just hunters, not just a chosen few. They were women, children, elders, families. It turns out art may have been for everyone. To know the artists, we must enter their world. The Upper Paleolithic period, spanning from around 50,000 to 12,000 years ago, was a time of transformation. Homo sapiens had spread across Europe, Asia, and beyond. Neanderthals were vanishing. The climate was cold, volatile. Glaciers pressed down from the north. Wild megafauna roamed open plains. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, cave lions. Our ancestors were nomadic hunter-gatherers. They followed animal migrations. They gathered roots, berries, and firewood. They lived in small mobile bands, 20 to 50 people per group. Each day was a battle for survival, but it was also a time of connection, with nature, with others, and with the unknown. From this crucible of life and hardship, art was born. Some scholars once believed cave painting was the work of specialists designated shamans or magical leaders who entered caves alone and painted in trance-like states. Newer evidence suggests that art was more communal. Caves often contain overlapping works, different styles, and handprints from people of all ages. This wasn't the signature of a single artist. It was the voice of a community. A major breakthrough came in the early 2000s. Archaeologist Dean Snow analyzed hundreds of hand stencils, those iconic outlines left when artists sprayed pigment around their palms. By studying the finger proportions, he found that many were not made by adult males, but by women. This challenged decades of male-centered assumptions in archaeology. Women were not just cooking at the fire or gathering plants. They were crawling deep into caves. They were making symbols. They were shaping the spiritual language of their time. In some caves, tiny handprints are found beside adult ones. At Chauvet, finger-drawn lines along walls suggest a child running their hands as they walked, like a prehistoric form of doodling. Many cave paintings are found hundreds of meters inside narrow, pitch-black chambers. Why go to such extremes? Because meaning was born in darkness? Some theories suggest these were sacred spaces, temples of stone. The act of entering the earth symbolized rebirth or descent into the spirit world. Echoes and flickering light created a theatrical experience, bringing the animals to life. This was not casual graffiti. This was ceremony. Whether spiritual, social, or educational, the images on the cave walls were not just decorative, they were tools of memory. Animals were painted not just because they were hunted, but because they were sacred. Each creature may have carried a totemic meaning, a spiritual role, a mythic ancestor, a tribal emblem. Handprints were not signatures, they were presences. Symbols and patterns may have represented calendars, stars, territories, spirit journeys. What did these artists expect? They had no books, no archives, yet they painted images that would last 45,000 years. Maybe they hoped the spirits would see them, or the ancestors. Though this series focuses on cave art, many of these same people made portable art as well. The Venus figurines, carved female forms, symbols of fertility or spirit, found across Europe, decorated tools and bones, jewelry from shells, teeth, and ivory, and the cave walls were simply the grandest canvas. Long before factories and chemicals, our ancestors found everything they needed to paint the walls of their world. They didn't just use nature, they learned to master it. The common pigments used were red ochre, yellow ochre, manganese dioxide, charcoal. These colors weren't just selected for availability, they had symbolic power too. Red may have symbolized blood, life, or death. Black may have represented darkness, the spirit world, or transformation. This was not just chemistry, it was meaning through matter. So, how did Stone Age artists turn rock into paint? Step 1. Collecting the pigment. Ochre was mined from riverbanks, cliff faces, and open pits. Charcoal came from fire remains. Manganese and hematite were chipped from veins and rock walls. This work was laborious and deliberate. Some sites show signs of long-distance pigment transport, meaning certain colors were important enough to carry for miles. Step 2. Processing the raw material. Pigments were ground on flat stones using hammerstones or pestles. The resulting powder was sifted, refined, and carefully stored, sometimes even in bone tubes or shells. Step 3. Mixing the medium dry powder alone wasn't enough. It had to bind. Common binders included water, animal fat, urine, spit, blood, egg yolk. They had no tubes or pallets, yet still, they engineered paints that have survived for 40,000 plus years. How did ancient artists apply their pigments? They didn't have bristle brushes or rollers, but their tools were surprisingly varied. Hands and fingers. Many images were finger-drawn. Smears, swirls, lines. Fingertips left personal traces, still visible today. Pads of moss or animal fur, used like modern sponge brushes. Reeds or hollow bird bones were likely used as airbrushes. Blowing techniques. Pigment was blown through reeds or directly from the mouth. This was used to create hand stencils, one of the most iconic forms of cave art. Some artists use the contours of the walls to enhance their images. A bulge might become the shoulder of a horse. A crack might become the line of a spine. Shadows from torchlight added motion, making painted animals appear to leap or shift. This was interactive art. Not just flat images, but experiences shaped by light, sound, and space. The cave wasn't just a canvas, it was a collaborator. Painting in deep caves meant entering absolute darkness. So how did prehistoric artists see what they were doing? Obviously, the lighting tools, stone lamps, hollowed out rocks filled with animal fat. Water basins may have been used to reflect firelight. In places like Chauvet and Altamira, paintings are often located where echoes are strongest. Drumming produces deep reverberations. Voices sound amplified or strange. This suggests the artist may have used music or chant during rituals. The cave was not just visual space, but sonic space. These were not silent halls of art. They were living environments filled with rhythm, voice, and presence. Cave paintings are fragile. Their survival is a miracle. But many are disappearing due to microbial growth from human breath, humidity from tourism, shifts in temperature due to climate change, fungal invasions, like the one that now threatens Lascaux. Because of this, most original caves are now closed to the public. We must treat these works not as curiosities, but as world heritage. These aren't just paintings, they're messages from the dawn of human mind. For years, the story of cave art was told through a narrow frame. France, Spain, Europe. But that is not the whole story. It was never just about Altamira or Lascaux or Chauvet, because long before flags and nations, long before names on maps, humanity left its mark on every continent. For much of the 20th century, European archaeologists believed that cave art originated and was perhaps exclusive to Western Europe, because sites like Altamira in Spain, discovered in 1879, Lascaux in France, 1940, Chauvet Pont d'Arc in France, 1994, seem to hold the oldest, most advanced cave art. But that assumption ignored a critical truth. Cave art is global, and the oldest examples may not come from Europe at all. In the last 3 decades, scientific breakthroughs in radiocarbon dating have shattered the old model. From the cliffs of Indonesia to the rock faces of Australia, from the mountains of India to the deserts of Namibia, early humans everywhere painted their world. In 2014, a discovery in the Maros Pangkep caves of Sulawesi, Indonesia, changed everything. On the wall, a reddish hand stencil sprayed around a hand placed against the rock. Nearby, a wild pig painted in rich ochre, at least 45,500 years old. Older than Lascaux, older than Chauvet, and in 2019, an even more spectacular painting was found nearby. A hunting scene, possibly depicting part human, part animal beings, chasing pigs and buffalo. It dates back over 44,000 years. These discoveries mean that symbolic art emerged outside of Europe, possibly at the same time, or earlier. Early humans across Asia were expressing narrative scenes, not just animals. The creative explosion we call the Upper Paleolithic Revolution. The art of Sulawesi tells us something profound. Wherever humans went, they carried imagination with them. Now we talk about the artworks found in Africa, and it may also be the birthplace of symbolic thinking. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists discovered shell beads pierced and worn as jewelry, tools stained with pigment suggesting deliberate paint making. Though not figurative cave art in the European sense, these are artistic behaviors. They show abstract thought, intention, design. In Apollo 11 Cave, Namibia, rock fragments with painted animal figures date back 25,000 to 30,000 years. In Tassili Niger, Algeria, thousands of cave paintings show cattle herders, hunters with bows, dancers in ceremony. Some of this art is 12,000 years old. Now we talk about the caves and rock art across North and South America, which is diverse, vast, and mysterious. In Brazil, the site of Serra da Capivara has yielded paintings possibly older than 20,000 years, including hunters with bows, animals and birds, dancers in elaborate postures. These images challenge traditional timelines of human migration into the Americas. In the southwestern United States, petroglyphs carved by ancestral Puebloans, Hopi, and Zuni peoples tell stories of clan migrations. Regardless of geography, early humans chose to depict animals often most powerful or dangerous, handprint symbols of presence, perhaps identity, geometric signs, dots, spirals, zigzags, hybrid beings, creatures that defy natural form. By this, one thing is clear. The desire to make art was never local. It was universal. The global presence of cave art also reveals something deeper: migration. As Homo sapiens moved out of Africa between 70,000 to 50,000 years ago, they carried more than tools. They carried symbolic knowledge. From the Arabian Peninsula to Southeast Asia, from the Indian subcontinent to Sahel, ancient Australia, from Beringia into the Americas, they brought language, myth, story, art. In the damp caves of Chauvet, in the red bluffs of Sulawesi, on the walls of Altamira, El Castillo, Lascaux, we find visions, animals in motion, abstract signs, handprints, dots, lines, labyrinths. Each image is a puzzle, and together they raise the oldest question in art history. Why did early humans paint these forms in dark caves? What did they hope to say? One of the oldest explanations for cave art is hunting magic. Proposed in the early 20th century, it suggests that painting animals, especially those humans hunted, was a ritual act meant to ensure success. A reindeer drawn before the hunt, a bison pierced with lines, perhaps spears, a horse painted in mid-stride, caught forever in motion. This was not decoration, it was spellcraft, but there are problems. Some painted animals like lions, rhinoceroses, or bears were not common prey. Others like fish or birds were rarely depicted despite being widely eaten. And many scenes show no hunting at all. No humans, no spears, no conflict. So while some paintings may echo ritual preparation, they are not only about hunting. Another powerful theory, shamanic practice. Here the cave is not a hunting plan, but a portal. In many indigenous cultures, shamans are spiritual guides. They enter trance states through rhythm, darkness, isolation, or psychotropic plants, and journey into other realms. Could the cave paintings reflect such visions? Many images are dreamlike, surreal, animals with exaggerated features, floating heads, half-human, half-animal beings like the famous sorcerer figure in France. What if the images are stories, like cave-bound mythologies, passed not through words, but through paint and line? Some researchers propose that recurring animal groupings like herds of horses or bison represent oral traditions or tribal myths encoded in symbolic form. A herd on a migration path could reflect a seasonal story. A wounded animal might embody sacrifice or transformation. A half-human figure might be a culture hero, a trickster, or a spirit guide. Art becomes a mnemonic device, a memory palace where stories are stored in symbols. This theory gains traction when paired with the repetitive symbols found in many caves like dots, grids, zigzags, Y-shapes, wavy lines. Perhaps they were an early form of proto-writing, a symbolic code used to track time, events, or spiritual journeys. French researcher Dr. Genevieve von Petzinger documented over 30 recurring geometric signs found across European caves. These symbols may represent days or months, repetitions of rituals, clan symbols, celestial events. In many indigenous cultures, specific animals hold spiritual importance. They are not just food, they are totems, spiritual relatives or protectors. Some scholars believe that Paleolithic humans may have believed in animal souls, and that painting them was a form of respect, communication, or worship. A bison may be more than a bison. It may be a guardian, an ancestor, or a symbol of strength. In this view, painting is not for humans. It is for the animals themselves. What's extraordinary is that similar cave art appears across continents. In Europe, horses, bison, mammoths, hand stencils. In Indonesia, red pig paintings and negative handprints. In Australia, rock engravings, spirit beings, animal tracks. In Africa, spirals, animals, ritual scenes.